This is Bleav in Buckeyes. I'm Bryan with All-American cornerback Chekwa. We got more spring ball to talk about. I mean, we're not quite. I guess we're kind of like week 2 of spring ball. I don't know how many weeks it is now. It's like, 4 or 5 weeks. But, we got more guys running around playing football and things of that nature. Chim, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Weather's nice. It's just bright. It's just a bright day for me. I'm feeling good.
Yeah. Bright is good, man, right? It's nice to kind of wake up and, like, when you get going, the sun is actually out and it's there for till it's dark at night. It's Ohio. We enjoy our seasons. That's for sure. That's for sure. And as we kind of look at things, stories are starting to come out about depth chart around Ohio State. And obviously it's spring, right? Things are going to be mixed up. You're going to just throw guys out there just to see what they could do. But, Chim, have you been hearing anything or seeing anything that kind of sparks your interest that's, worth sharing with our
No, I'm kind of locked into how the defensive back mix ends up. Where do they end up with it? Because, you have that nickel position, which Jordan Hancock took over and was the staple there. And you have a guy who backed him up, who played in key moments last year, Lorenzo Styles. But there's a ton of talent, man. And what happens is when you bring guys back for another year who have potential to go to NFL, guys like Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock comes back, et cetera. You have this like staple of talent that were 5-star players that we forgot. We forget that a lot of these other corners are 5-star talents who haven't had an opportunity. And now it's spring ball where you really don't get that much of a chance outside of now to figure out, okay, what does that mix actually look like? Because camp is going to happen real fast. And I'm seeing that, the different guys playing that nickel position. Jermaine Matthews, I think, is getting some reps there. Obviously, you have Lorenzo Styles, Bryce West, also, a young corner who's getting some reps there. And, Jermaine Matthews is interesting, right?
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
He's a known guy.
Dive into that a little bit, right?
He's a known guy who's going to come in there and start, right? David Ebenolson is a known guy who's going to come in there and start. And then you got a freshman phenom who all signs point to Devin Sanchez potentially being just an impressive player who's going to have a good career, barring, he stays healthy and all those things. So the question is, if those do end up being your 3 best guys, and not discounting Aaron Scott and Bryce West, whichever one of them emerged from the mix, and Lorenzo Styles. But if imagine you have 3 guys, none of them really have extensive experience of playing the nickel, but they're just your 3 best guys, right? At some point as a coach, you just want to get the best guys out there. So I'm interested to see how that shapes up. If I go back to my redshirt freshman year, going in the spring, I was competing against a bunch of guys, played really good in the spring, all right? The 2 starters from the year before, Donald Washington and Malcolm Jenkins, already solidified their starting positions. I was not taking their position, but I played well enough to be a starter. So then it was like, Coach Fickle and them making a decision. It was, okay, if we're going to get our best guys out there, Chim's the guy we want to put on the field. So we put him on the field. He only could play corner. At this point, he doesn't know the nickel. He doesn't know safety. If I'm coming in, I'm playing a boundary corner position. Well, that's what Malcolm Jenkins is playing. And obviously, I'm not replacing him. So what they ended up doing is moving Malcolm to safety and moving Anderson Russell, who was our safety, to that nickel position to make it work. Now we got our 5 guys, Kurt Coleman, Anderson Russell, Donald Washington, Malcolm Jenkins, and me on the field in those passing situations. And I'm feeling like this is another, a situation where whoever emerges from that group, safeties, you got Malik Harford, you got Jalen McClain, et cetera. Whoever emerges from that group as a guy we want on the field, they're going to put those guys on the field, and whoever is best equipped to play that nickel probably ends up playing that nickel in those key situations.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, important to say, right? Because, you talk about this your best 11, right? You get your best players and you stick them on the field, and obviously you feel like this is the best chance we have at winning and being, that defense that we want to be. How does that look competition-wise, right? Like you kind of speak about your redshirt freshman year. You said you were competing with a bunch of guys, right? Yeah. And then now, you got Devin Sanchez, who's essentially really competing with a bunch of guys. How does that feel? How does that fit that, maybe that the young guy is the better guy, and you kind of have to, I don't know, wrap your head around it that, maybe he is, the best person to kind of be on the field at this time.
Yeah. So one, when I look at it from a coaching standpoint, one reason why when you identify a talented young player who's growing up fast, you think about a young kid just in general, like in life, like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, they're as they learn, they're developing really fast. They're understanding stuff. They're absorbing stuff really fast. So in the same way, a young corner who may not know the defense as well as others, etc., you don't want to stunt their growth in some ways, right? You want, because you see them going fast. Like Jeremiah Smith, between week 1 and the playoffs, he was a very well-developed player coming in. He grew into an NFL player in terms of just getting a feel for everything. So Devin Sanchez is going to be on this rate of fast development. And you want to continue that if he's ready to go, right? Because he's going to, week to week, he's going to continue to improve and improve. And then from the player standpoint, you're just trying to get on the field. And it's the coach's job to, all right, if we identify this guy earned his spot to be on the field, let's identify, how can we make this mix work? And that's where you lean on the guys who are the most versatile players, right? A guy like Jermaine Matthews, who could potentially just, you put him on the field, he could do whatever you need him to do. Jordan Hancock could go on the field and do whatever you need him to do. Caleb Downs on the football field could do whatever you need him to do. He could return punts, play safety, he could blitz, he could cover, right? He could go play running back on the offense, right? So those are the guys. And similar, in my experience, Malcolm Jenkins could do whatever you want. Malcolm Jenkins was a football player. He could do whatever you need him to do. If I was coming on the field, I was playing corner. As a young player, I was playing corner. That was it. I wasn't doing nothing else. But Malcolm, you could put him on the field, and he was going to make plays regardless. And I think you lean on those guys to be your versatile players, and that young talent, just like Jeremiah Smith offensively, you put him in a position to flourish, because at the end of the day, those are the guys that give you the best chance to win when it comes key moments. I need to stop. I might want a guy like Sanchez locked in, man to man, to do what he can do best.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So, and also, like I said, we're kind of looking at the depth chart. Obviously, we're not making a ton of it because it's spring.
Yeah.
It's time to mix things up. But we're seeing C.J. Hicks right with the tools, right off the line, coming in with that second unit at that defensive end position, not even, tampering or messing around with being in that bubble linebacker, man. But I think it's important to say, right, because obviously C.J. Hicks has been in the program for a while now, right? And he'll being a big time recruit, he always is being brought up when it's time for competition. Like, how's C.J. Hicks going to fit in this situation? How he's going to fit in this situation? But maybe now, at the defensive line, you play multiple guys. You should be playing multiple guys, right? And you kind of put multiple guys out there on the edge to kind of go out there and make plays. But I was going to say, like, it's something to say that, he's been sticking around here at Ohio State with all the tampering and things of that nature, him being that big-time recruit. I mean, his family's phone has to be blowing up every time the portal opened up to see if they could kind of make a play to bring him in. But it's good to see that he's sticking with us, and like you say, he's getting that shot now to actually do something that he's probably good at. We anticipate him to be good at.
Right? It's an interesting dynamic in this era of college football because, I mean, by all accounts, he's a very, very talented athlete, right? He's a very, very talented athlete. And if you're a school or coach or whatever, and you see him, I mean, you figure if we get this guy, we can do something with him, right? So him being, not getting a significant time on the field so far. I mean, he played at linebacker and staying here. I mean, it's clear that both sides, the coaches and him, feel that there's a real opportunity to make something happen. So just watching that all unfold and develop is one of going to be the bigger storylines of this season, at least going into the year, just to see how that develops and what he ends up doing. How does he develop into that role as an edge player? And there's a few guys. We talk about C.J. Hicks, but there's a few kind of body types similar to him. If it works out for him, then how does that change how Ohio State recruits future players to kind of fill in that same role? So
Yeah, and also I want to kind of get into now. We're talking about Hicks kind of getting the shot. We think this is the year he can actually get the shot, and he play on a regular basis, and we get to see him as Buckeye Nation. But I want to kind of talk about guys really quickly who now seems to be merging. Like I said, once again in the spring, things may change, but kind of emerging into that starter role. And the first being Eddrick Houston. Obviously, he is a big time recruit, true freshman last year at the defensive end position. But as the season went on, they kind of said, like, hey, we think he could kind of give us something in that three tech spot down in D tackle. And he was able to do so. He was able to make some plays. Now going into the spring, it looks like he's with that first unit. Once again, still at that three tech position. What do you say about him and his growth, right? Is he, going to be ready? Obviously some other, we got the D tackles on the roster, right? Is he going to be ready to kind of hold that down? And obviously he's not going to be Tylee Williams in year one. We don't think. But obviously
that's the thing. You just never know, right? Like you never know. And in college it's funny because, when you have experienced guys who've been around 3-4 years, and those guys leave in a position, it's always kind of that thought of, you have to replace these guys. We lost this guy. We lost that guy. But college is the place where stars are created, right? A kid goes from being a young individual to an adult and becomes a star. You think about, my freshman year, James Laurinaitis becoming the starting middle linebacker. You lost 3 linebackers the year before. There was a void at that position, and he was a star year one. And that's kind of like the great thing about college, is because you lose, a Tylee Williams. And then another Tylee Williams type player emerges. And it's not always the one that you think of. It may be somebody else. There might be a dark horse out there that emerges as well. So it's one of those things just to follow. I haven't paid too much attention to him. Right? There's a lot of guys to pay attention to. It's his time to step into that role. So, we'll see how he develops into it.
Yeah. And another, James Peoples, right? So we got to see him a little, flashes last year. So after our boom and zoom got off the field, right after they had their days on a Saturday, we got to see James Peoples. And everyone speaks very highly of him, right? And once again, we had obviously a transfer come in Donaldson out of West Virginia, but it's kind of lining up that most likely people are stepping into that RB1 role, and kind of ask some questions about it. He's kind of being humble and say, try to do his role and step into it and play well. But, the former guys, they speak very highly of him in the way he plays and the way he can kind of see on the field. What's your thoughts, I guess, on people's kind of stepping up in that role?
So they speak highly. I don't remember who it was. Someone said he looks like the next, like, J.K. Dobbins type player. I don't remember who that was. Remember Denzel's talked highly of him. Other guys have talked highly of him. And you like to hear that because, as a veteran player, you watch the younger guys play, and you can pinpoint, like, oh, nobody knows about this guy, but that's going to be the guy next year. And we've had that. But the other thing about running backs in all positions, but particularly running backs, the guys come in, they're in the weightlifting program, they continue to develop their body, and they grow into that role. And sometimes, you have a guy, because Peoples has played, we've seen him run and do certain things. But after a year of, continuing to develop your body and everything, you become who you're going to be. I remember a guy like Carlos Hyde when we were there. Well, Carlos moved well he's a bigger back. He moved well. But I didn't see what I saw when after I left and watched him play on TV. I'm, on Saturday, I'm getting prepared for a Sunday game, watching Ohio State play. And I'm like, man, is this the same Carlos that was there?
Yeah.
Because he was always...
He was always confident. He was always confident in his ability. But, like we watch him, he's like, okay, like he could do certain things, but like, okay, is he really going to be the star under Urban Meyer? I mean, he took off to the moon, right?
Yeah, it was crazy, the transition. It's interesting because he always had the athleticism as a big back. He carried it pretty good, but he didn't run. He didn't really run behind his pads that much. So I was like, dang, I'm not actually sure what he's gonna be, because even though he has the size, he doesn't actually use it in a way that's really effective. And then I go to the league and I'm watching him on TV and I'm like, man, he's just running people over. Like, he's spin moving,
Right.
doing all this stuff. I'm like, man, I didn't see that. And so, it's at Ohio State, you lose great players and great players emerge. Like, that's just the way it is.
Right.
And James Peoples seems like one of those backs that's going to be one of the next great backs. And I don't want to put too much on him, but I'm interested to see how he emerges. And then also, you got insurance bringing the guy from West Virginia, C.J. Donaldson, has a bigger back to pair with him. So, and there's some young guys too, Bo Jackson and others.
Yeah, right,
So,
Bo Jackson, right. You got Williams Dixon. He's local, right? He got in the portal. He got out the portal. He's still around. So I mean, we got some guys. I think it was Anthony Rogers also coming in, true freshman. They call him Turbo. So kind of excited to see what he could do on a nickname like that, right? So man, but another thing we want to kind of get into is like obviously we're talking about young guys and stepping into roles, right? And guys doing new things and playing multiple positions. And Coach Day kind of was asked a question about that, like, hey, like. I think it was particularly to the offensive line at the time. They're looking at Sherfield and him playing tackle, we know he already played a lot of guard for us last year. Same thing with Montgomery. We know he came in as a tackle. He get his first, actual live reps at the guard position. And same thing with Shabola, right? Started at the tackle, but he get on the field actually at guard. But he kind of spoke about the fact that, college football is changing. One of the big things that's changing is that the rosters are essentially shrinking. We used to have, I think, 120 so players, maybe 80 on scholarship, but this roster is shrinking to having 105 players total, but you can now put all these players on scholarship. So it's kind of like a flip-flop thing, right? Because you get more scholarship players, right?
Yeah.
So the guys that you really sought off to happen and be on your roster, but you're losing that walk-on position where, those guys are been in the program for a while too. A lot of those guys can play some good football. So what are your thoughts on I guess, that approach from Day saying that guys need to learn how to do multiple things?
Yeah, so I'm not
taking effect.
I'm not sure what he is saying in that, because you do have an increase in scholarship athletes. So the guys who you brought in to actually play, that has increased, right? And the overall roster is shrinking, but it's like 30 or so guys that they're not playing anyway, right? A lot of guys are walk-ons. They are contributors at practice on the scout team and doing some of that stuff that relieves some of the workload, and during practice and stuff. But you do get more guys to play that actually are brought in to play. So I'm not sure. I think what speaks more to the need for versatility is this long season, though, where anything can happen, all right? And like he mentioned, you can't go pick a guy up off waivers like in NFL. You can't just go, UCF cut somebody, let's go ahead and pick that guy up and have him play this week. You can't do that. So you do need guys, and that might be why you have Jermaine Matthews playing nickel. That might be why, you have different guys in different positions, because, if you lose a guy, you may not want to bring the freshman in to go play the nickel. There's too much information that you need to know at that position. So it may be easier to slide a veteran guy inside and then put that freshman at the corner position, or stick that guy at free safety and have Caleb Down slide down to nickel because he would know that position. Or have a couple guys on the offensive line, right, that have played multiple positions. So it's easy for me to kick this guy out and bring this young guy in who only knows the guard position or only knows how to play tackle. So, I do think there is a need just in general to be able to have a plan for managing, your roster. I remember in the league, our long snapper, John Condo, got hurt one game. And we had nobody to back up long snap. Nobody to back up long snap. So you basically lose a game,
so what did
right?
Did y'all forfeit? Like, what happened?
No, we brought a linebacker into the long snap, and it was just like roll on the ground, and you have a kick block. Like we had no. It was almost better to go for it on fourth down than to actually long snap, because And you would think like, dang, they should have had a contingency plan for that, right? Should have been prepared.
Right.
But I think that's the mindset.
Was it with the Raiders?
It's the Raiders.
Okay. All right. Let's check it. I'm trying to get the people the story. The whole,
I mean, the NFL is different, right? You don't keep two long snappers for that specific. It has to be somebody else in another position who also can long snap. Because and then if the guy's hurt the next week, basically you have to cut somebody to go bring in a long snap off the practice squad. Long snap. So it gets crazy, but I could kind of see, his perspective. You might have some veteran walk-on guys who on the roster who in emergency situations can come in certain positions, but now that freshman that you probably were going to redshirt, he may need to be ready to play. He's got to be ready to play. You may not have the opportunity to just take a full year off. Like, we need you to be prepared to play multiple positions because you just don't know how that year is going to kind of line up.
Check out. Yeah, because and the big thing is special teams, right? I mean, obviously we know this past season, fingers, we was pretty solid in our special teams. And obviously years prior we was kind of wanted more, but I think that's a big thing, right? Because a lot of walk-ons, like your emerging walk-ons, you definitely this is your time to shine. You put them on special teams, and they go out there and they make plays, and they take it very seriously, right? Because they know that's their job, that's their role. And now you're gonna be leaning a little bit more, maybe on some of your younger players to kind of know it and take it serious, right? And understand, that if you mess this thing up, how do it affects the game, right? You just don't get to be the 5-star linebacker right away. We might need you to be on punt and run down in your lane and make a play from that standpoint.
Speaking of special teams.
Yeah, I was about to say, we brought in some help. We brought in a guy. We brought in Nate Ebner, 10-year vet. 10-year vet. Obviously, he played with us, and he was a walk-on at Ohio State. And obviously, if you know Nate Ebner's story, he does a tremendous thing. Does a lot of different things. But one of the things he wanted to do is play football all of a sudden at the college level. And he was able to turn that into a very long NFL career. Who was essentially drafted as a special teams player by the New England Patriots. He's now on the staff. So that kind of brings up a point. Us bringing in some of that NFL or talent at that quality assurance type roles here, control type roles here at Ohio State. I mean, I guess what's your thoughts on that? What he's going to bring to the freshmen and learning this stuff.
So first of all, the way the coaching staff has shaped up, I mean, I love it, right? Yeah. You got Hardline as offensive coordinator. You got James Laurinaitis in there coaching the linebackers. You bring in Nate Ebner as a quality control guy who can help coach special teams. And this is a guy who got it out the mud, right? He came in as a walk-on. And everybody knows what a walk-on journey is like at Ohio State. You're a practice
uphill both ways.
Yeah, hell, I don't want to disrespect the walk-ons, but you're basically used as a scout team player. Your opportunity to play is very limited. Like, even if you're good enough to play, right? There's two guys. One guy has a scholarship. The other guy's a walk-on. You guys are equally talented. The guy who got the scholarship is playing. Like, we've already invested our resources, and we already have outlined the future for that guy. For you, we have not. So that's the way it shakes out. So Nate Ebner was a very talented athlete, a guy who didn't get an opportunity to play a lot of safety, which was his position, but did play a lot of special teams, and then got drafted as a special teams guy, and then played a long career for the Patriots as a special teams guy, and was coached by Matt Patricia as a safety, played some safety as well. So, oh man, that's a great hire. And I tried to get him on the show for an interview when Matt Patricia was initially named as the hire. And then, he's busy. He just got married and different stuff. But now he got to come on the show now. He didn't tell me.
He has to.
He didn't tell me how this stuff was in the work. So I'm pumped about him. But it kind of speaks to the way the coaching hires have been going with the guys who are quality control type, defensive analysts, et cetera. It speaks to this kind of new rule, right, where they basically can allow those guys who are quality control guys to be more on the field, be able to coach guys more, which I like a lot. I like that a lot.
Yeah, right. I mean, especially like the way things are shaking up, right? Like you say, like, we only have we only have 105 scholarship players, right? And a lot of those guys are going to be young guys. So what's the best way to get a young guy ready to play is put some experience around them, right? So now you're talking about Nate Ebner coming in, 10-year vet, coaching, helping out with special teams and sitting in that role. Your former coach, your former cornerback coach, Terry Johnson, who has a ton of college experience, NFL experience, now being able to kind of step in and assist the defensive back room and what they're doing there. I brought another guy in, an NFL guy on the D-line, and he's kind of backing up our D-line coach and kind of assisting them with things there. But it's like you get this experience and you guys that know the game, right? Yeah. And I mean, I would say, I'm not going to say historically, but previously you might have seen a younger guy in that role, maybe a guy who just finished their GA role or something of that nature. They kind of start going up the coaching ranks and they get some of these QC spots and things of that nature. But now we kind of flip. Like we get some experience there. Maybe a guy that's in between jobs, or maybe a guy who's just new to coaching, but we know been playing football for a extensive period of time, kind of come in and step into these roles and really, get into the importance of doing certain things and how to do things the right way. What's the proper technique? What are you looking at? What's your vision looks like? And kind of could share that to the younger players and make sure that they're ready to go. Because in an emergency situation, we can't say we lost the game. We lost the game because we had to play a young guy. We can't have that excuse. These guys has to be ready to go to step in and contribute right away. Right. Once the Saturdays run around in the fall.
Right, because the actual position coach is limited in time. Like you think about Tim Walton, who's coaching the group. He's also the co-defensive coordinator. Like he's trying to figure out. He's trying to figure out. How should we attack or structure the passing game to stop the other team. But then you may have a guy like Devin Sanchez who potentially may be starting the game, who may there's one thing he needs to work on. There's just a few things he needs to be reminded of, etc. That's a good opportunity for a Taylor Johnson to pull him aside and be like, hey, when they line up like this, we need you to go fill this run gap. Like when they line up with two tight ends, you got to take the C gap. Like you got to trigger fast. Like those type of reminders are useful. I remember being a young corner, going into my first start against, I think it was Minnesota, having the guard. What's the receiver that came out of Minnesota that played for the Jets? Decker. Having the guard Eric Decker all game. And I know the coaches were nervous. They were nervous. They would keep coming to me, reminding me, hey, you're going to have Eric Decker. He likes to do this and this. And I used to be like, get out of my face, baby. But it was understandable because, there wasn't a quality control guy who with a ton of experience that I could spend that week just kind of going through the calls and, going back through my responsibility, et cetera. That guy was Malcolm. Like, that guy was Malcolm. That guy was Marcus Freeman. That guy was, Anderson Russell. Guys that were my teammates that I would be like, Marcus, hey, when they line up with this tight end, what's the call again? What technique do I have? Or Malcolm, when they do this. So it's cool to actually have those guys now in the building that can add that extra attention. I'm telling you, if I had 2 weeks with Iggy, 2 weeks, 2 weeks on the practice field with Davidson Ebernosen, there will be no more holding for the rest of the season. I'm telling you right now.
We gotta get this stuff. We gotta get this up the ranks. We gotta
2
get
weeks,
this to come
bro.
on. 2 weeks. That's it.
2 weeks. It's not because of, because I don't got a ton of experience coaching and all the other stuff. It's not because of that. It's just because of experience of being in the same position and dealing with the same challenge and figuring out. And that's what you get when you bring a former player back who who's been in those exact same shoes. You get some of those little nuances leading up to a game, leading up to a practice, going through a spring that they went through to be able to add that extra coaching. So I'm enjoying the decisions being made from a coaching staff, hiring standpoint, and I'm excited for how those things keep developing.
And that's it for today, right? I think we got, obviously, we'll bring you more once we have more, and hopefully sooner or later we could make it to a practice ourselves and kind of tell you what we're seeing with our eyes when we're looking at our Ohio State Buckeye team. for the 25 season. But in the meantime, please follow us. Leave us comments on YouTube. We love the comments. We love to ask a question. Put a question in there. We'll get to it and address it on the show. We really appreciate it. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever we're there. And kind of stick with us as we continue to report on some of our young guys, our new Buckeyes that are stepping up in the ranks here. The new emergent stars for the Ohio State Buckeyes that we're reporting on here. But that's our show. As always, we end with a nice OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks. Talk to you guys soon.
Go Bucks.